Men who are hostile to other men often use evolution and biology to excuse women's hostile behavior towards us. Because they themselves, they like the dog eat dog world that men live in. And so when they do, what they're saying is, hey, dude, it's all natural. We can't fight this. Don't expect anything better from human beings because, that's just ingrained in our psychology, right? Which is untrue. Because when these guys start talking about it, they'll pick and choose the animal kingdom they want to back up their claims. Now, we're going to debunk this. Here is the cheetah. Now, these are four male cheetahs and their brothers. And what they're doing is they're stalking a female and they're all going to mate with her. They're going to share her. They're not going to fight each other. There's no alpha male in the cheetah clan. Why? Because there's an environmental pressure changing their behavior. Cheetahs are almost endangered. Their numbers are that low. So they can't afford to dilute their genetic material any further than they already are. So rather than have one male have all the females, the brothers share because they're like, my nephew will be like a son to me. He'll be close enough to my genetics that it's like I am passing on my genetics. So they share a female. Now, this doesn't sit right with the average guy, the average hostile man who wants to like claim that, oh, no, sorry. We guys, we're all about alpha males, right? One guy gets a harem, the rest get blue balls. Now, even them, what do they usually choose? They usually choose like lions, gorillas, chimpanzees, animals that have an alpha male and get a harem. The only problem is, even if you take a look at a lion, which fits that category, that there's an alpha male that has a harem and the other guys get nothing. There's a big difference between them and human society. The females work for them, not the other way around. The alpha male who gets a harem of females, he doesn't work for them. His job, well, he does, but his job is to protect the cubs. And that's what's going on here in this scene. There was a cub that a female was getting aggressive with, and the two males ran right in to defend the cub. So the lionesses, they do the hunting. They bring back the food. Guess who gets the first share? The male lion. Right? The females work for the males. So all these hostile, Evo Psych guys, they leave that out. Now, the most extreme case is the killer whale. Or the orca mother will actually look after and feed her grown son. Why? Because she realizes she can only give birth to so many young, but her son can impregnate many women, many females. So she says, hey, I'm going to look after my grown son because he passes on my genes. And by the way, I have video covering this, which is important because the feminists don't like this. And you can feel them gearing up to do something to stop this, right? Because, a male's being taken care of a female. But I'm getting off track. The whole point is this is completely different from our society. Human beings can go this way. We're conscious creatures. We can change our ways and have women actually work for men and mothers actually care for their sons in their adulthood, right? Now, what these guys will do is they'll say, oh, but, killer whales are nothing like us, and even cats are too far away. So they'll bring up our closest relatives, which is the chimpanzees, right? Say, there, look at the chimpanzee. There's an alpha male, and he fights off all the other males. He gets a harem, and all the other guys get nothing. Now, the problem is that we are not chimpanzees' closest relative, even though they are ours. The closest relative to a chimpanzee is a bonobo, right? And bonobos, they're matriarchs. The females are bigger and more dominant than the males. And the males, there is a mating season. There's a mating season, and then all the rest of the year, they're not concerned with beating each other up over females. The bonobos have they don't have a season. It's year round. They'll mate with one another year round. They're also smaller and lighter than the chimps, and they walk upright more. So they're closer to us, right? Now, that kind of shows you that we don't, if bonobos and chimpanzees that are very closely related, supposedly they split apart just a mere million years ago. If they can be that different in behaviors, there's no excuse for the conscious human animal. Now, I just want to point out a couple of things because while researching this, Google, I'm going to show you just how feminist Google is. You have to know what questions to ask. I said, what's the difference between chimpanzees and bonobos? And it says, chimpanzee societies are male dominated with a strictly hierarchy led by an alpha male and strong male-to-male bonds. Bonobo societies are female-centered and egalitarian. See, the females are considered egalitarian. However, with females forming tight coalitions to dominate the males. So liars always contradict themselves. So on one hand, they're saying, oh, these female societies, they're egalitarian, but they want to dominate the males. Right. Right. And conflict resolution. Chimpanzees are territorial and aggressive, using violence to defend the borders and sometimes killing rivals. Bonobos are peaceful and cooperative, resolving conflicts and reducing tensions through social sexual behavior. So this is what they mean by social sexual behavior, right? I asked, do female bonobos attack male bonobos? Yes. They frequently attack male bonobos to assert dominance and maintain social order. So they aren't egalitarian. Female bonobos are just as dominant as male chimps, right? So you got to suss out this kind of thing. BS that comes on Google. You got to know what right questions to ask. But anyway, I'm just going to get back to this because the worst case, because human beings, we can change, right? Again, I believe this was probably a fairly, for cheetahs, their sexual behavior might be fairly recent as far as their species is concerned. I don't know if it is, but it might be because I believe there's a environmental pressure changing what's going on with them. Because what do you see? What the grass eaters from Japan, right? Guys who slowed down, decided to get part-time jobs, uh, live a minimalist life. They're changing their male behavior from the stressors of environment that they live in, right? They can't compete with other males, so they just say the heck with it. And they become gentler and just relax. It can happen very quickly. And really, there's no excuse not to. It's what it is. The guys who push this Evo psych, they're male hostile. They're obsessed with the opposite sex. They worship the opposite sex. They're willing to pander to them at their own expense. And they want you to pander to them at your expense as well. They only kick up a stink when they don't get a pat on their head from their enslaved masters, right? Now, The worst case scenario is going the path of the hyena. Here's a video that says why it sucks to be a male hyena. Because the females, all the females in a clan are above every male. Just a minute, I gotta stop this. You know, it's getting so that we're slipping towards this kind of animal behavior. And because we're, as people, as human beings, since we're so conscious, we don't have to do that. But that's what I see happening right now. So every male just being beneath every female and being abused. No, there are actually guys out there that are becoming more like cheetahs, right? They're starting to lose this care of fighting with their fellow man over the opposite sex. And again, the grass eaters are proving that this kind of pressure, that is the loneliness epidemic, is really just women uh, discarding men. That's all it is. And these guys have just said, "Ah, the heck with it," right? Or better yet, the South Koreans actually fought back. The South Korean men actually formed a proper MRM and fought the feminists there. So it's proof that we do not have to live in this dog eat dog world. The guys who push this actually are male hostile and female obsessed. We do not have to go their way. End of story.